Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. And we're going to ask to silence cell phones here. I can't remember if I did mine yet, so. All right. So we're going to start off with citizen concerns. Anybody that has anything not on the agenda, I know we come right on up to the microphones to state your name and address, and sure thing. I'll move to receive this for the record.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you. And we got a little packet here for you, Jeremy.
Okay.
And
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Senchins. I own and operate Midwestern Land and Auction in Mapleton, Iowa. And it's my understanding that the County Board of Supervisors has approved exploring at least the option of selling the county home farms, as they're commonly known. I have an interest in going to work for the county and the board, and what you have in front of you is a presentation without knowing all the answers, a rough out, if you will, of the property. The lines may not be exact, especially as it relates to Track 3, but understanding that my door is wide open to discuss how Track 3 should be offered with regard to the east line, where the county home itself is, or the former county home. It's an approximation. So I think it's reasonably comprehensive with regard to the geography of it. I've enclosed the soil maps and just a general overview. And on the second to the last page would be my auction proposal, minus some details about the exact sale procedure in offering that in 3 tracks, which I believe would be the appropriate way to offer that. So I would be glad to answer any questions. I understand you have a full agenda, so I'll try to be as brief as possible, but yet certainly stand to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Why 3 tracks?
Unless the board feels otherwise, I believe that that is the best way to offer the farm to get the most money and do it fairly, obviously ethically, understanding fully well that I would be representing the county and the Board of Supervisors in my capacity. But that would be the way to get the highest yield on the land, and the understanding would be that it would be offered as choice of the 3 tracks for a variety of reasons that I can get into at a later time, but that's a general comment. Choice of the 3 tracks immediately for maximum impact on bidding, et cetera. So that's my opinion.
Can you speak a little bit to sales in Woodbury County specifically, and what would, set you apart from other companies that do the same thing?
Well, it's what we've done since 1939. Specifically as individuals, and I've personally done it. My CV is, I believe it's on the last page. We've been doing it for a long time. We've had a lot of experience. We're extremely active in Woodbury County on real and personal property sales, and we've been doing that for decades. We've done as well a lot of appraisal work. I can get into the number of farms and the number of dollars that we've handled, but suffice it to say it's very substantial. And our home base, if you will, is Woodbury County as far as our business base, in large part.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. I think it's good. We got your card and we can follow up here. I don't know, like I said, if the decision will be made soon or not exactly, but
Thank you very much for your time.
thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
It truly would be a privilege to work for the county and the board. So my card is there. It does have my mobile phone on it. I would invite any of you as a group or individually to contact me at any time. If I don't answer, I can get back to you pretty quickly, and it'd certainly be a privilege to work for everyone, and I think you'd be happy with our work. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? Concerns that are not on the agenda already? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, approval of the agenda. I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Let's see. Moving on to the consent agenda, items 4 through 8 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the January 18th, 2022 meeting. Item 5, approval of claims. Item 6 from County Auditor, approval of application for an 8-month Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales privileges for Foot Wedge Lounge, effective 4/1/22. Item 7 from the County Treasurer, A, approval to refund WO 5320 for an overpayment on this parcel. 7B, approval to refund Warrior Hotel Limited Partnership for $76,990 for overpayment of taxes, which I said they saw that. How do you not notice that? 7C.
I had the city assessor come down and explain why we're giving, it's a large refund. Normally when they give refunds like that, there should be an explanation. He's got a very good explanation if you'd like to hear it.
Sure.
Chairman Raddick, board members. So in March of 2018, the city of Sioux City entered into a minimum assessment agreement with the Warrior Hotel to have $15 million worth of assessed value for January 1 of 2020. Of course, the construction didn't happen as fast as they had planned. They contacted us in the spring of 2020 and wanted to appeal the value. And I said, well, you really can't appeal the value because you have a minimum assessment of $15 million. So what they did is they went back to the city, and on July 14th of 2021, the city actually amended the minimum assessment agreement going back to create the 15 million so it didn't start until January 1 of 21, and then extended it out a year farther at the end instead of 35 until 36. So basically taking the 15 million off, we had it assessed at the time for $5,307,900, and then had almost 10 million additional add on to get to the minimum assessment. So
Makes sense.
I have the documents here if you'd like it for the record, or
So we're refunding the money because the construction is not done as projected?
Well, because of the delays of COVID, yeah. So they just,
Right.
the city moved the agreement down.
the city
the road.
moved, yes,
Yeah.
because the construction didn't happen as fast as expected.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay?
All right, well, hopefully you can get a quorum next week here. Thanks, John. All right, item C, approval to refund Fig Series Holdings $980 paid at tax sale. Approval of resolution for tax abatement for City of Anton, that was 7D. Item 8A from Human Resources, approval memorandum of personnel transactions. 8B, authorization to initiate hiring process. Any discussion on anything on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to item 9, Deputy Commissioner of Elections Steve Hoffmeyer, canvass of drainage district elections. I know this is what the press is probably here for.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Steve Huffmeyer with the Auditor's Office. I have the certificates of election, the abstract of votes here for both the canvass of the Farmers Drainage District and the Garrettson Drainage District elections for you guys to receive and to sign it.
All right. Anything unique to note?
Nope, pretty basic. There were just one person on the ballot for each one of them, and they got all the votes. So.
Well, I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, passes 4-0.
No one would be opposed. They won by 100% margin.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm the canvassing board chair, right? Yeah. Actually, on these, oh, you got a relative here. All right, moving on to item 10. Approve the memorandum of understanding with Woodbury County Conservation Department. Go ahead.
In 2018, we purchased a portion of the Brazy Farm for purposes of establishing a gravel pit. Much like we did with the Peters Pit, where it was a cooperative purchase between County Conservation and the County Road Department, where the County Road Department would mine the available gravel and then turn that area over as a park. It was also our intention at the time with the Bracy property as well. It took us a little while to get to all the crossing the i's and dotting the t's on the agreement, but basically this lays out the terms of potential sale as was agreed to verbally by Conservation and by the Road Department at the time of purchase. At this point in time with the Bracy Farm, we've mined about 50,000 tons of gravel into moves into the area. We've got some additional areas that we might be able to mine. We're not sure it's going to produce quite as much as was expected from some of the reports that Hallett shared with us, but we are still taking quite a bit of gravel out of there. We currently have roughly a 26,000 ton stockpile sitting there for use over the next 2 years by District 3. What this lays out is that the lake property would be a 50-50 purchase basically, and then the 42 to 43 acres, or 41 acres more or less of that we're renting currently as a farm, we would sell at the purchase price to Conservation. They choose to develop it as a upland cover area. I guess I'm available to answer any questions the board might have. And, I recommend the agreement for approval.
I guess personally, I'm still not on board with it. I don't know. I kind of like us to maybe explore some strategic planning to, see what the county could maybe do with the property as a potential development site.
I guess, in looking at it for us, it would take some pretty good sized lots to allow development of water and sewer on each, on any areas surrounding the lake. Getting water or sewer from the town of Correctionville would be challenging considering our location across the river, the distance we are from the sewage lagoon ponds that, where they dispose of sewer for the town.
We fortunately have a new funding source, though, that could potentially help with that does fund water sewer projects. And then, you know, the benefit is then we can get the water and sewer to the park itself too, which I think would benefit that as well.
This is just a portion of the property that the county owns out there. We have an additional 80-some acres between the park and Bracy Farm that are also county-owned. That's where we're currently processing gravel for the gravel road improvement program that we're starting next spring.
And, you know, I don't fault you for doing the work on this, and I understand, you know, where you guys come from a position, but as, you know, board member, I personally don't feel like what's something I'm ready to decide on, so.
I'm inclined to agree with Keith on this. I don't want to close the door on potentially going in a different direction.
The purchase price of 50%, is that right?
That's in the lake area.
The lake area for one of the two portions you mentioned?
That is one of the two portions. We were looking at roughly the 35, 36 acres surrounding the lake as being one parcel, and then the 41 acres that's currently being rented as farm ground as being a second parcel that would be under different terms.
Does that mirror terms that have existed on other deals in the past?
In the course of the Peters gravel pit and the, I can't think of the name of the one over by the Wright farm, both of those, once the gravel was mined out, are being turned over to conservation as conservation hunting and fishing areas. So we've got at least two areas that are of similar nature that have gone from purchase by secondary roads or cooperative purchase in the case of the Peters pit, and then transferred to conservation when the gravel asset was fully developed off of the properties. The Wright farm, we're working now with Hallett Materials to complete the grading. They were stockpiling some of their material on the county side of the line. They're proposing to finish up that area and build a new road coming into the Wright pit this summer so that we can turn that parcel over to conservation. If you recall, last fall we let one more mining contract at the Peters pit to fully exhaust the gravel resource at that location as well. So once those are done, then those would be both conservation areas to be managed by the Conservation Department. Peters was purchased 50-50. The Wright pit was purchased 100% by secondary roads back in the 1940s, I believe.
And by agreement on the Dan Heisel, Director of Woodbury County Conservation, the Peters pit, the mining had the contract between secondary roads and conservation had expired, and they came to us needing more gravel, and our board in cooperation and working with the engineer's office said, yeah, take the gravel. We didn't have to do that. So, you know, we're trying to be good partners here as well.
Is that,
And
is that,
we,
sorry, is that the stuff on O'Brien Avenue or which?
Peters is right by the shooting range, just west of Little Sioux Park.
it was the same.
The Wright pit is off of Mason Avenue, east of Anthon.
When was that one purchased?
Wright was back in the 1940s.
Is that my granddad? Or my great-granddad?
I don't know who owns, we refer to it as the Wright pit because there's now a private gravel pit immediately south of where our parcel was.
Right family partnership.
Okay.
Has some land in that
Yeah.
area.
If I realize the last name, but it's not an uncommon last name.
Right,
So,
there's more rights out there, but
yeah.
piques my curiosity.
I'd just like to go on record that when we went after the Breezy parcel, it was with cooperation between the Conservation Department because of the relationship we had with the Breezy family and working with the engineer's office when we purchased that. So we sat in closed sessions with the Board of Supervisors at the time and discussed this memorandum of understanding and did it verbally. I wish we'd had it done back then because I hate to see us change course now. This is a perfect addition to the park, long-range planning where we can put in more facilities that generate revenue for us and that let us fund our capital improvements projects, which doesn't have us come to the county supervisors asking for tax dollars. So this is something that our conservation board had agreed on and worked with the engineer's office and thought we had to understand with the county board of supervisors. I hate to see us backpedal now on this agreement. Because as Mark says, I've had a construction company out of Correctionville talk to me in the city about there's no way they'll put sewer out there. They can't afford it. It's not feasible to pump it uphill to the sewage lagoons. Even though I know what funding source you're talking about. I think we have other.
Why won't you need sewer? What are you gonna do with it?
Not us, it's what
He doesn't need
Supervisor
sewer.
Raddick. I don't need sewer.
I know, why won't you need sewer?
Because our campgrounds can use septic systems.
Gradually, I think what the intention would be is once we, the Breezy Farm will be connected to the rest of Little Sioux Park once we exhaust the gravel asset in the properties that lies between the two. Right now, we had estimated that we had between 40 and 60 years of gravel reserves in that parcel that lies between the Breezy Farm and Little Sioux Park. That was before we took on taking 1.5 million tons out for our gravel road improvement program. We'll be using that material up sooner, but we still have probably 25 to 30 years before we'll fully reach that north property line on that Little Sioux Park gravel pit property and then link to the Breezy pit. But this was kind of the roadmap for how that entire, I'd call it almost a recreational corridor, where we have the bicycle trail on the east side. We're going to have a number of fishing and lake resources there. Conservation will be able to expand their campgrounds, picnic areas, and roadways up into that area. We've tried to start working on this mining that we're doing out there so that as we move north, we're reclaiming that ground for recreational area so that we don't end up with just abandoned pits out there that might be unsightly and less than useful. We're really trying to keep in mind the recreational value of this ground as we complete taking gravel from the area.
A good example is this summer, the engineer's office contacted us on this Breezy parcel where there's areas that have been drained because of the pumping. And Ad said, you know, we can't do the work, but if you need to get a contractor in, we can improve and widen this road, put the road in that you'll need, and make fish structure, make moats, put up rock piles, and we did that. So.
What's the timeline here as far as a date that you think this could happen or be ready for something else?
The Breezy pit, we probably only have maybe one more attempt to get some gravel. We have some area that kind of lays southwest of the current pond and north of where the roadway to the south end is, that is a likely source of gravel for us. Everything that is within the 41 acres tillable, there's no gravel reserves under that. Its only value is farmland or upland type recreational purposes. We're very near to having I would say we're getting very near to having the Breezy pit utilized for all the gravel that we can pull out of it within the next 5 years or so, Matthew. What we've been doing in District 3, which is the railroad pit and what's left there at Breezy, is that we're pulling the gravel that's needed by that district maintenance staff. About every other year, we bring in a contractor to process and crush gravel for us and build an adequate 2-year supply, just so we've got a quantity that's big enough to get us good prices on the crushing. But again, there isn't, we're not sure that there's a lot more for us to gain out there. And we've already recovered almost half of what Wendling had, or not Wendling, but Hallett had predicted was present in the area.
So does that mean a roughly 5-year timeline?
To us being done with that 77-acre parcel, yes. Not that we mind the rental income, that's already made up almost $100,000 of our purchase price. So that's been a benefit to the department as well in helping pay off that asset.
Any of the parcels south of there, are you still mining those?
Yes, that's where we're taking the material now for the gravel road improvement
So
project.
if we could also get more information of which areas you're mining and what your estimates are in each area you're mining, that might be beneficial too as information moving forward.
We can prepare some diagrams that'll show you where we're headed with that.
I have been in discussions with somebody about a feasibility on the water and sewer side of things. You know, to know what, you know, cost estimates we would be looking at. You know, if those are too far out there too, I think, you know, we would abandon that. But I don't want to like just pledge this now and not know what we could do as a board versus, you know, and I understand where you're coming from. I mean, that's your department, and, you know, when it was presented to us in closed session, that was the only option given at the time. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, there's always, you know, there's other things we can also do. So, you know, so I don't know if I would have signed an agreement then at that time either. So that's just my position. I'm not, you know, against conservation. I'm not against county roads. I love what you guys do, but I'm not going to support this yet.
Yeah. Well, we don't necessarily lose anything from our department's perspective, but again, what we're just trying to do is cooperate and come up with what we felt was a very good use of the land and a good recreational asset for the county once we're done.
Mr. Chairman?
Days approaching.
Go ahead.
I'd be supportive of this tonight just based on our original discussion and agreement, but I was wondering, in deference to your wanting to seek more information, is there a time certain that you think that you could come back in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that and revisit it if you're not thinking it has the support tonight?
David, do you remember in, was it Olson's email, what kind of time frame he put on that?
No, but I can probably pull it up real quick.
I know we could get the aerial photos and where our development plan kind of lies with this for you within the next couple of weeks. I'll be out of the office next week, but I'll be back again the week after that and could bring in some of that information for you. We already have a lot of that plotted. Conservation's helped us by taking some fresh aerial photos so that you can see the changes that are already being done on the property. We've stripped a lot of the volunteer trees. We've moved most of the overburden out there to allow us to get at the gravel resource. Early February, I think it is the second week in February, we're having a letting on the crushing 300,000 tons, the first portion that we're looking at utilizing on the gravel road improvement program. So, but again, you know, there's years as we work north where we'll be pulling gravel out of that pit.
So is it my understanding you're still working on a feasibility study with Mr. Gleiser's department on this property?
I use Gleiser as the community development side of it, you know, as a full-time staff person that's here, and that's kind of his role for the county. We
had talked about any further development or plans that would include being next to the park or the park that my department would be involved in. I have not been in contact about anything. When you and I talked the last time at the store, you told me it was a dead deal.
It was at that moment. I have, you know, with COVID, a lot of things got basically put on pause, you know, and kind of working forward with, you know, discussion of how we're going to fund a jail, what sources can we use for that. I mean, really 2 years of the board action has kind of been hamstringed by what's happened. So,
Is my department going to be, if you're going to go forward with this project of this housing development, is my department going to be consulted on how it's going to impact our recreational area where we'll shut down hunting out of that north end of the park because it'll be too close to your residential area, trails, ponds, stuff like that?
yeah, I guess anything that would impact would have to be brought up, so,
Because it will impact our park
yeah.
and our revenues.
I think if, sorry, I think if this is brought up again, that would be helpful to include the impact, just as you mentioned, for us to see all.
Which grounds the county currently uses for
Right.
hunting ground,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I support what you're trying to do, and you and I have had this conversation. But we need to be involved in the conversation because it does impact us. I realize we're trying to get more tax houses and stuff, but I don't think this is a place. I'd gladly help you get it somewhere else, but it just, you know, it's been a long-range plan of the Conservation Board's department before I got here. And with Mark's department, it was the first meeting I had with Mark Nara and Rick Snyder was they laid out Little Creek Park and showed all the maps, and this is what you guys will be working on in the future. So, you know, something our Conservation Board's looked at. So we work real well with the Engineers Department. We work real well with the Supervisors. I want that to continue. So.
And I do plan on having strategic planning at some point this summer. I obviously want both of you guys there as department heads. So, you know, things like that could be brought up at that point too, as far as, you know, where your guys' long-term goals are with the park, and not just that park, but every other park too, so.
Yeah, we're just trying to, you know, recover as much as we can once our use there is terminated. And every dollar we get out of working with the farm, you know, this would have repaid a good deal of our investment. Our gravel gets cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd like to at least recover as much of that secondary road money as we can. And, you know, this, like I said, appeared to be a good way as we undertook this project to make all of that happen and create a very nice conservation parkway as well. I think it's an asset to the county regardless of how you proceed. Whether it's publicly used or privately used, it will be your decision, I guess.
Well, I don't think there's a guarantee necessarily that, you know, we're all supportive of Chairman Raddick's ultimate idea, or if he would even suggest it after studying it. But the reality is there's 2 definite no's already, and there's 4 voters here, so.
Yeah.
It's, you know, when you bring it back, I'd appreciate the impact, you know, study and things like that could show us what impact that would have on your department.
When I bring it back, do you want it just as an information item with the aerials and the eventual layout, Keith, or do you want to have it as a action item with the agreement included with it?
I'd like to move forward with our feasibility study first, and then kind of see what the information is on their, you know, side of it as well, so, on the development side.
Okay.
But I do want to see what we discussed here too, you know, where the gravel is, what the current hunting zones are. So that's all information we need to decide things, so.
But I think when you see the map and what we've looked at, where they gravel and where they're not, and what they thought was there, it's not a big open pond.
Sure.
It's got a lot of contours, which is good for us, for conservation and recreation, but. So. All right, well, I appreciate you listening and.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you. So no action on item 10. Move to item 11, Community and Economic Development, and David Gleiser. Motion to set the date and time for 3 public hearings of the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. What do you got?
David Gleiser, Community Economic Development Director. Just asking the board to set the date and times for 3 public hearings for some proposed amendments to the text of our county zoning ordinance. And we have dates for you on February 8th, 15th, and the 22nd. I do know on February 15th that we have a 4:35 public hearing for our urban renewal amendment for the AGP expansion. Outside of those times, Karen, do you have any times that you'd recommend?
Then it's February 8th, budget-wise, are we going to be somewhat,
The 1st, the 8th, and the 15th are gonna be reviews of all the budgets. The 1st, we have a couple on there. We have wage plan and a couple other things. There are allotments. Otherwise, the 8th and 15th, we'll finalize it. It'll be published. So this really won't interfere with that.
okay. So on the 8th, maybe we start that meeting at 4. So maybe, what would we set that at 4:07 or something, 4:05?
4:05? And then on the 15th, we have a 4:35 for the urban renewal amendment.
So we want to do 4:37 there.
Okay.
And then let's do 4:35 on the 22nd.
All right. So I'll repeat that. That's Tuesday, February 8th, 4:05 PM, February 15th, 4:37 PM, and February 22nd, 4:35 PM for public hearings on proposed amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance.
All right, I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to item 12, budget. Do we want to take 5 minutes, or are you guys good?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, all right. 12A, WCICC, the general basic, pages 15 through 30.
With this budget, we kind of wait also to see what the city's gonna do, if they're keeping it the same or making any cuts. If they do make cuts, we'll follow through with whatever the cut would be our share. But we submitted, because it's such a lengthy pages there, we submit all the budget that they had actually submitted. So,
Yeah, what Dennis said, I have my CIP hearing tomorrow morning, or Saturday morning with the city, and then there's a February operating hearing as well. The biggest items that we're facing right now is software maintenance, just huge increases in that. So something to be aware of.
Where are they at in our book here, Dennis?
the what? They're under supervisors, page 15.
And then this is this our half?
Correct.
Okay.
Our share.
Share.
Operating. The
Okay.
CIP will be discussed later. in our
It's not the,
CIP for next year.
it's not the total, so this increase is the whole increase rather than half of the.
It's just our share.
Okay, gotcha. Well, seeing all the increases we've had in all the other maintenance contracts, I assume that's probably a big part of a lot of it.
Yeah, we're aware of a 30% increase with Microsoft by itself, and they're announcing another 15% increase this spring, is what I understand. Yeah, so that's good news.
All right, well, I'll move to receive.
Yes.
Did I get a second? Okay. Motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Moving on to, thank you, Jen. 12B, medical examiner.
This one we would like to move to February 1st. We are having a meeting with the chairman Friday morning at 9 o'clock. They're coming up with numbers that would potentially reduce quite a bit our medical examiner fees. So we'd like to move it to next Tuesday.
All right, so no action, or do you want us to just defer to them?
Defer.
Move to defer to what, Tuesday?
February 1st.
February 1st.
Next Tuesday.
Second.
All right, motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to 12C, Secondary Roads Fund, number 1, roadside management, page 3.
Look toward the back of the book.
Our department helps with the budgeting for the county weed commissioner. This year, other than increase in pay, we requested some additional funding for purchase of chemicals and herbicides. Those costs are increasing each year. One of the things that Jared has done in the last few years is using more effective herbicides that are smaller chemical footprint than the old 2,4-D and some of the products that used to be used for trees and brush, but those products are a little bit expensive. We ask for a 10% increase in that part of his budget.
So you don't want to use 2,4-D, huh?
Well, there's still places it gets used, sure. but some of these other products are a lot less sensitive. They can be used close to water.
Okay.
And they have a lot lower environmental footprint than some of the older products we used to use. Those were really, I think, yeah, we're the same on equipment and the other items. So.
And that's just page 3, right, Dennis?
Yep.
Correct.
Move to receive.
Second. So motion by Wright, second by Raddick. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Jeremy, you're still on there, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. C2, secondary roads, pages 4 through 39. Got a little bit of pages there.
And the reason we include all the pages is for information basically only because the secondary road engineer has to back into this budget with the minimum levy, then he spreads it out in the budget. And when we calculated minimum levy at first, we had a lower valuation what it actually came out. So in this, talking with Mark, this could be reduced by $141,000 minimum levy, which is what we actually tax for.
That would keep us at the same property tax level that we were last year, $1,610,000. We can get by at that level without having to cut any of the proposed expenditures. There's a couple things I want the board to be aware of. Over the next 5 years, it's been recommended to us by our fuel storage consultant. All of our tanks are at least 30 years old. They're all double-walled steel. They're performing all right, but we're either at a point where we have to do some major upgrades on the overfill or spill hardware that goes with them, or bring them above ground. His recommendation is that we look to bring these tanks up above ground. We're running off 2,000-gallon tanks. It's not like we can take a transport at any one of our facilities. We can go to above-ground tanks in 4 of the 5 facilities. And the 5th facility, I think we're going to want to talk to the board about perhaps selling, which is our shed in Climbing Hill. We can't really expand at that building anymore. We're proposing eventually moving that facility to Luton, where it can still cover the territory at about the same distance of travel. That would be the 5th of the above ground or underground storage tanks that we're currently dealing with. That's about a $50,000 expense per year in digging out the old tanks and putting them up. We're proposing to do the first one in fiscal year 2023. We also have a increase in cost this year with the 4 additional staff members and fuel. Fuel, we're getting hit by inflation, plus we're undertaking that gravel road improvement project. So we're looking at a significant cost increase in that budget area. That's one of the reasons that, looking at $1,750,000, we were hoping to gain some additional revenue to help out with a couple of those projects over the course of this year. We understand if you're in constraints where you have to peel back that, as long as we don't lose money compared to where we were at last year. Our increase in road use tax funds was not large this year. We do have some increasing revenues from local option sales tax projected. Dennis is projecting an increase of about $300,000, but that'll quickly get eaten up in inflation. Almost, fuel almost eaten it up.
Well, and I just, at Simcoe with the DOT, you know, Dakin mentioned that all their bids came in 30% higher than the estimates that were done last year. So
We've done all right so far. The bids on the project inside the park at Bigelow Park came in better than we expected, as did the bid for the Hornick pavement, but our bridges are running more costly than they have been. Next year we have 2 bridges that have been discussed in the boardroom. We had folks that were concerned about that Hancock Avenue Bridge just north of Hornick. That bridge is in for next year. It'll be one of 2 new locally funded bridge projects. The second bridge is the one on Jewel Avenue that the other gentleman had stopped in and talked to the board about. We'll have carryover projects as well that are going to be led in fiscal year 2022, but those will be the only 2 new projects that are proposed in the budget this year. We're also transferring money, the last of our $6.5 million special project levy, to our farm to market fund to assist in paying for the pavement on County Road D50 south of Anthem. We completed the grading project on that last summer, and we're letting it go through 2 freeze thaw cycles because of the depth of some of those fills prior to paving it in 2023. We're also looking at building a new sign shed in this fiscal year. We got about $100,000 plugged in for that. So we did also have an increase proposed in our building and grounds area. In addition to fuel tanks, also the sign building. It's falling down around our ears right now, so it's time to get that building out of here. Did you have any other questions? Most of our expenses were in line with the next year. We had to project additional fuel costs, both for fuel cost increases, and increased usage in the next fiscal year.
what was the number we were supposed to be, or did you have this reflected in?
41,000 reduction in the minimum levy.
140 even though, Dennis.
140?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll move to receive less than 140.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any other discussion, or what were you going to bring up there, Mark?
I didn't have anything unless you have specific questions, so.
Seeing none, we'll, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on to D1, County Supervisors. This is projected revenue for Hard Rock, and where we're going to spend those.
It's under Supervisors. And we had two requests out of this fund. I did budget for 50,000 to debt service, so we made an agreement, we'd do 50,000 current year and 50,000 next year to help offset some of the increase in debt service. So that is plugged in. Go to page 45. We have 2 categories here, Meals on Wheels, inserts, and then the carryover plus gaming and gambling revenue that's unobligated be 618,000. This is potentially used down the road when we come down to the final numbers to help balance out the tax rate. But in the meantime, you have Meals and Wheels and certs. I'm talking with Jeremy, he brought this up before, I believe, that potentially we could use ARPA money for this, because they're both serve the needy really and helps in transportation and senior citizens. So right now, we have a budget there for 12.7. You can approve each one of these individually. And they have some backup behind it.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Dennis, Supervisor Ung and I have been speaking about the issue that you brought up as far as nonprofits that are eligible. Is this something that if the board does this tonight that we can revisit in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're approving a dollar amount tonight, then the funding can either be gaming room as it is now, or we can change it, you know, after the budget's certified, as long as you don't increase taxes, and this wouldn't be an increase in tax, it'd be an increase of unobligated funds if you ARPA money. So,
Thank
no, yes, you can approve it tonight, and then later we can determine whether it will fit into the ARPA or not.
And these, the first two are required to leverage other funds,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. And the third, that says new,
Okay,
Page 52.
that is on page 52. That's Centers Against Abuse and Sexual Assault. They applied, I think, before, and we've denied it, but I put it in there just in case you want to do it. Again, ARPA funds could possibly help this out.
this doesn't, the contribution is not required in this case to leverage other funds, is that correct?
I believe not.
Okay. Could we discuss this when we come around to ARPA funding?
Yes. Yeah, you could leave this out for now, just do the two we have. We come back and review this when you do the nonprofit possibly section of the ARPA funds.
Does that sound good to you, Jeremy?
It does.
I'd move to receive Woodbury County Senior Meal Program. Do these need separate?
All second.
That's-
So, move to receive, what was that?
Meal program.
Meals and Wheels or,
Okay, so okay, just doing it individually as the meal program first? Okay,
You said we needed to do it individually, right?
you can do them individually, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
okay. So we have a motion by Ung, second by Taylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0.
Move to receive Siouxland Regional Transit System.
I'll second. Motion by Ung, second by Radig. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Now this, I didn't think we were going to be taking anything new, so I don't know if we're,
Just defer.
yeah. Or, yeah.
I'll move to defer on CAA SA.
Second.
Do we have a date then on deferral or just?
Yeah, you can decide that when you go through the ARPA funds eventually. But if they need funding by July 1st, we'll have to have some kind of decision form by July 1st. This does not affect tax dollars, because it's all non-tax dollars involved, so it wouldn't affect anything except just increasing funds available in gaming revenue or funding a new program. And you may have more than this new program when you get through the nonprofits. But it won't affect taxes.
So who's the second on that? Was that me?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion by Ung, second by Radig to defer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to D2, Infrastructure, Economic Development. Starts on page 69.
There is an increase in revenue. That could even be a little higher, but right now, we want to make sure we don't over budget for revenue. So if it's in there, it is unanticipated funds that can be obligated at a later point in time. So you go to page 70, the Sergeant Bluff Eye Clinic, that income will cease to come in next year because they'll have paid off their loan at the end of this fiscal year. Then you go to page 71, this is a reimbursement from other entities because the IJR is not complete yet. There's still funds due out there, and county engineers are still here. That project is not done yet, so we still have expenses come out from other entities. revenues will come back in, and then our share will be approximately 21,000, or 16,000 on page 72. So eventually, hopefully, this IJR and the decision comes back fairly soon. I don't know if Mark will want to address that or not.
What's that?
IJR,
Yeah, we only owe $16,600 on the project. We have roughly, we'll have a little over $30,000 in revenues coming back as our partners pay us back.
So is that number off in the book?
but then the projects will be pretty much even, maybe 1,000 ahead or something.
The book shows 15,811 for the IGR.
Right, that's what I had in
Page
there.
72.
I didn't know for sure, but it's right around 16,000, so we're really close. And
Okay.
that's for the whole project, isn't it, Mark?
That's correct for the IGR portion, yes.
And we'll get some money back from the other entities.
So like I said, we haven't billed the other entities, they owe us a little over $30,000 right now. And there'll be another 8 to 10 of that final payment that will be due from our partners.
A few more years of that?
No, this right now, we're in what we feel is the final phase. We've been working with Federal Highway and answering their questions. They required a couple of revisions to the report, and we're hoping to have this finished here before the end of fiscal. So.
Did the Simcoe housing and memberships get updated?
It actually dropped
What's,
from what they originally had before.
it's supposed to go up.
Well, what they sent in the letter here, they submitted the letters down. But let's go through each individual, because there are also possible ARPA funds potentially to be used in this. So why don't we go to page 72, go through each one of those that are listed individually. In the IJR study, we've just talked about the Expo Center. This will be payment number 5 of 10 for $150,000. You committed for that previously for a 10-year project. So on this should be the one you need to approve. That's $25,000.
Now, we went up to that 25 from 10 like a few years back. Are they still funding that position that we increased that for?
This is a different deal.
Okay,
The Siouxland Convention Center is further down, where we funded for 3 years for $20,000. This is just a normal, contribution we make every year. The other projects were separate levy. One's done, and then this one will be done next year.
Are you thinking about workforce development?
yeah, we increased it for that position, didn't we? Are they still maintaining that position?
I think we're done with that. We did, but this is separate from that. Previous years, we did budget for that, yes. For that position, workforce
Okay.
development, I believe, yes.
Okay,
That's done. So this is just contribution 2 that we've done every year for $25,000 through that initiative. And page 73 is their request there, if you want to look at that.
so are we gonna move these individually, Dennis? Okay, so I'll just move to receive the IJR study.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. I'll move the event center.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. I'll move the Siouxland initiative.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? County Fair, you're asking for more, it looks like.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, okay.
But we invite them to,
We would like to thank you for what you've done in the past for us. Our fair is growing, and we continue to grow. Well, I'm Mark Thompson, sorry, Chairman Rating and other supervisors, and Dennis as well. We do appreciate everything you've done in the past. Our fair is growing. We are the second largest 4-H fair in the state of Iowa, next to Des Moines, with a population, twice the size of ours. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I wanted to share that our numbers are really very good. I'm Mary Thompson, the Secretary of the Woodbury County Fair Board Association. I apologize. Our 4-H enrollment is increasing each year, and we are quite large. They do a tremendous job with the kids, get the involvement, keeping their interest. The FFA chapters have really increased for our fair. All of the Woodbury County school districts have FFA programs except for Sergeant Bluff. They are doing a pilot program now with Mr. Bronson, and hopefully they'll be on board, and then all of the schools in Woodbury County would be part of the FFA program chapters. Our open class projects are quite large. We have 600, this year 650 people participated in the open class exhibits. That's from preschool to senior citizens. And with them bringing their exhibits, we had over 3,300 exhibits just at our fair this year, which was down from our previous year in 2019, which we, of course, are going to blame on COVID. So our fair is very important to the youth of Woodbury County. It's also very important to the individuals that are not involved in 4-H and FFA. And also it is very popular with the people around all the small towns. They have a place to come in the summertime. I think our numbers increased this year greatly because so many of the people could not come to the fair back in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic. We did go up to 98,808 when Mark and I were coming up with the number of how many people. We just were really trying to get to that 100,000 mark, and we just kept counting and counting, but we did come out with 98,808 coming through our gates this year, and that was an increase of 5,000 plus. So our fair does have an impact on people.
I would say the day I went, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday last year, it was probably the busiest I've ever seen the fair. Really like the little alligator kissing booth thing. That was nice.
Austria might take whole alligator.
That's right.
I'm glad you were able to make it. So, we're asking for what we did in the past, the 32,000. We know that your budgets are tight. But, we would appreciate if you consider that, and that's why we're here. So.
What is your largest government contribution source?
Probably you. You guys as well. So.
I'm just looking at the top number on your sheet here for.
We had from grants from the past year. We had the PPP loans, and then we've also had
That explains it. Okay.
Governor Kim Reynolds gave $75,000 to our fair, depended on the size of your fair. And then also we're receiving grants through the Small Business Administration for $146,000 plus.
Okay.
So that's where those numbers are coming from.
That explains the government contributions number there. Thank you.
What are your board's plans to make that windfall meaningful for years to come?
The $75,000 we have to use toward operating costs. It cannot be used on capital development, so we're using that for operating costs. That's a restriction on that particular grant. And for the $146,000 plus, that is for entertainment, advertising, ticket purchases, anything that goes with entertainment, we are to apply to that. So we are looking for bigger names in entertainment for our grandstand. We are looking at possibly some online ticketing to kind of get us up into where all the other competition is. So we are looking into those different areas and applying that money to those fields.
Is there any way to partner with somebody like the Tyson Event Center or, the Sioux City ticket office to?
We are reaching out to different ticket offices. I talked with the Shriners today, and they suggested that we visit with who they use for their online ticketing to see if that might be a good connection. And we've contacted some other ticket agencies. There was one where we talked about last night. He was through the Hard Rock, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
And we did talk to the Spencer Fair, Jeremy Parsons up there, the outfit that they use, using their advanced ticket sales as well. It's something that we're looking at in the future, and hopefully it can be done. But it's internet that's going to stop it or let it go to service up there.
Well, I'll go ahead and move to receive yours.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I hope to see you this summer.
sounds great. Thank you. Passes 5-0.
5?
4-0, sorry. Friday, Jeremy, you're still there, right? Or I can't even hear you breathing.
I am.
Okay.
Hear me now?
All right, so moving on to Grant Riverfront. This is final one of these, right?
No.
No?
You're on the regional, yes, this is I'm sorry. Yes, it is final.
All right, I'll go ahead and move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on, Simcoe Improvement Regional Housing.
This one here is the same amount they asked, or this amount they asked for. It's on page 77. This is another one, possibly ARPA funds could be used. That could be determined later, so basically it's just a matter of approving it, receiving it, and then we'll figure out the funding later. Right now it's out of gaming or local option sales tax, but it might come out of ARPA down the road.
So Wicker Tiff asked for $10,235.
Yep,
Okay.
that's what need for the match.
Well, I'll move to receive it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Interesting problem they're having. They can't even get bids from contractors. So projects aren't getting done because they can't even get bids. Moving on to Simcoe membership. Now, is this ours plus everybody else's?
No, this is the towns outside of Woodbury County, or I mean in Woodbury County, but ours is a separate deal where the membership is under your dues under the Board of Supervisors.
So this is our 401 Simcoe plan.
This is the one Dave has that kind of works with the cities, and we pay a portion of their Simcoe dues, memberships.
Is Dave okay back there? Yeah, you looked weird under your computer like that.
I was trying to listen to
Okay.
Simcoe membership dues, that's something you have a program to help them out.
Yes, we use local option sales tax and offer to pay 50% of the membership dues annually.
I'll go ahead and move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to Western Iowa Tourism.
This is another one possibly you might use ARPA funds because you can use it for tourism. So this is, you'll approve it out of this now, it could be changed later. in time.
Now, is this the one, Jeremy's the liaison to this? Is that right?
I think I am.
You are? Okay. I know they send us all emails. I don't know
Yeah. I think we all get them.
if, okay. Anything coming from their board?
I think I'm freshly on it, so
Oh, okay.
I think. Iowa's a great place, is where it's at. They want people to come,
All right.
so.
What's interesting is people want to go to states like ours right now as opposed to California, but not right now. But. So what was the ask on that one?
500.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0,
Last one's Iowa West
or
Coast.
4-0, sorry.
Same as last year.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. E, Debt Service Fund, 85 through 99.
Okay, what I did there, I took all of our bonds and loans, tallied them up, and this is what we came up with for a total, I believe, of, I think it totaled up to 6-7 million total, but I actually broke it down by each bond issue. You can see on the page, let me get to it here. page is this on? 85 to 99. You go to page 80 or 92, you'll see each bond issue and what year they're paid off. We're gonna have 2 paid off after this next fiscal year. Actually, yeah, 2 paid off next fiscal year. The first 2 there, then in 24 we'll have another one paid off. And then you have our other bond issues here. This does include the new bonds, both bonds, plus the lease, additional lease payment which is incorporated into the debt service levy, our lease payment. It also includes capital loan note, page 96. This here is up to discussion. I did leave a piece of paper on your desk there, shows all the capital loan improvements that are being budgeted for this year that we borrow. We're gonna start the process in April, so we get it done by June 30th. And you'll see the list there, conservation's on there for $1.2 million. That'll be included in the bond issue, but they're gonna reimburse that through their park revenues over a 10-year period, so they can afford, to pay us back or pay that loan off. Then you see the ones that are funded through debt service fund taxes. You can see the ones that are approved and the ones to be approved. Once we get numbers for them, the total is $2,816,000. Now, the ones to be approved, I think, Keith, you mentioned possibly Prairie Hills demolition might be able to be covered by ARPA. If that does pan out that way, we can take that $1 million off of our debt service levy. It won't be actually $1 million, it'll be 1/5, because I do a 5-year loan on our CIPs.
Well, we still don't have an estimate on that, though, do we?
No, I called Kenny today, and he's gonna start pushing this engineer to get something back to us so we can go out and bid this thing out and get it done this fiscal year. That's our goal. If it doesn't get done this fiscal year, we'll have the money carry over in the next fiscal year to get it done. But it'd be nice to know the final number. Either we do it through debt service or ARPA funds possibly. You'll see the last 3 things is 28th Street. There's 3 items: fiber optics, construction costs, contingency change orders. The way the ARPA fund reads now, you can use it for broadband, which is part of this here, through ARPA, and also you can enlarge sewer pipes. There's water things you can do now that weren't allowed before, so that'll be able to make up the cost of the total number there of over $400,000 to ARPA. If that's true, we decide that, and the board approves that, we can reduce the debt service there for the next 5 years by not borrowing that money. So there's about $1,420,000 we could knock off if we can use ARPA. If not, we levy a tax and have the money sit there until we spend it. We have 2 years to spend it. And like I say, if we determine this, we can approve it at the higher rate. It's with a debt service including this. We got till May 15th to change it. I did check with the department management. We can change anything downward. Any budget, it affects taxes, it can go down. It just can't go up. We have to do it by May 15th. So we'll have about 3 months to think about this. 2 months, April, March, and half of May to figure out whatever we want to spend some of the ARPA money. It doesn't have to be obligated all at one time, the $5.8 million that's left, because we got 2 more budget cycles to spend that money. So it gives you some latitude to think about it. This here, we'd have to have that done if we're going to reduce the debt levy by May 15th. So it gives a couple of months basically to think about this.
Any questions here? I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any questions on our moving target?
Dennis, have you taken a look at what all these smaller expenses, what they are in some of these things we're looking at maybe using ARPA for, because we know that what the target number, we have 5.6 or 5.8.
5.8 million.
And how much of that is gonna
Obligated?
Yeah.
0.
But of these expenses that we're kind of putting off and determining how we're gonna spend it, do you have any idea where we're at in those numbers? How much of that 5.8 are eating up through some
Well,
of these
reading this up, it depends on the nonprofit. They may set aside a certain number, set aside for nonprofits, and you could have these plus maybe some others potentially. Actually, this here would be about $1.4 million, so you still have $4.4 million left to do something with.
Personally, I think we'd want to have Joshua's approval before we suggest any of these items.
Yep.
So,
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to F1, Veterans Affairs Administration.
The reason this budget is going up is because when the lady was hired, as the Veteran Affairs head person there, that she passed a certification, they said she'd get this amount of raise, so this is why this went up so much from last year to this year to the future.
Certification matters, huh?
I'm Lisa Robinson with the Veteran Affairs Office. Lonnie is sick,
All right.
and she has no voice.
This is pages 2 through 4. What?
Their total increase was $47,000. The bulk of that is in wages and benefits.
What's the stationery and forms and all that?
That is just our general day-to-day. We are doing so much more outreach than has ever been done before. And like I said, to do that, it's kind of, we're needing more supplies to, when we go out.
Where are we at on that this year?
4,800. When this was printed, I don't know, what's our update
At the
now?
5,800 up there?
Yes. 58, 59.
And that's 7 months, so you're running pretty close to 10,000.
And what was the purpose of doing more of that?
Well, this is just getting out to, we've gone to local Legion posts to talk to them. They've been going down to the 185th, the 113th, which has nobody's ever gone down there from our office. And we've gotten a lot of Guard members signed up for benefits now. We've done the health fair here for the county. We got asked by the city. We've actually had a lot of organizations contact us about coming and talking to their organizations because there's veterans in there. And, I mean, we're also gonna start going to more Legion posts, going to towns in the summertime to spend a day there. So, you know, veterans in Danbury, we can, instead of them having to drive up here, we're coming to them, basically. Military funerals have been, I've done more military funerals this year than I think I have in the 9 years put together. And like I said, I've made a list of everything we did, and it shocked me how much outreach we've done. And that's just getting us out there, and the more people we can get signed up for benefits, the more that comes into the county.
Repairs and maintenance, office maintenance and improvements, that's a new
Yep.
allocation. Is that for something specific?
Well, part of what we did this year for the office is we had our office painted. Our carpet in our office is getting pretty bad. It's been in there for 10 years, and we had the carpet squares. They're starting to come up. They're starting to fray. It's like tripping hazard, don't want anybody to get hurt, and like I said.
Okay.
And we've also said, because where we are, we kind of say it's Triview Speedway through there. We've had tire marks on the bottom of our building, right underneath the big glass windows. It's like if something happened to one of them, it's like, okay, how are we going to get this fixed? So just general maintenance of things for the office.
And did we not have that under Kenny's budget items too, or not?
Under his courthouse buildings, yes. But that covered the whole building. This is specifically to their bill part.
Well, I imagine the new carpet would probably be at least 2,000, if not 5, so.
I know when we painted this year, it was like, you guys have to buy the paint, we'll paint. So I was like, okay,
The whole building gonna get new carpet?
just our section. And that was put in shortly after I started, so it's just about, it's 10 and a half years old. And you walk around and you're pushing stuff down and,
So that's not that much, it's not that much carpet we have to go.
Back under Tri-View, under building services, there is repairs and maintenance for the building of $3,535. So I don't know if part of that could cover some of this or not.
Yeah,
Well, it hasn't for all these years, so.
Right.
I'd hate to kind of double dip on it, you know, like put 3,500 there and 5 here.
Well, I'm sure,
3,500 is covering the whole building.
I'm sure
Yeah.
Kenny uses it towards maintenance. I mean, he would have adjusted it down in the last several years if it was not being spent.
Right. And these are really two separate deals where this is carpeting, he doesn't have that budgeted or any other interior improvements.
Okay.
Telephone expense, yearly charges for office phones and fax. What's the increase there due to?
until these guys the service officers get their cross accreditation with the different organizations, we have to fax things to the American Legion, the VFW, whatever organization it is, and they don't have 800 numbers. So our cost has gone sky high. And when they checked on how long it would be for the cross accreditation, they said it could be 1.5 years before they get access.
I'll move to receive it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to IDVA grant, page 5.
This comes from the state. It's kind of for the last few years, it's been $10,000. There was 1 year it got knocked down to $9,500. But we have to use this, and this is part of our advertisement budget that we can use that the state gives us. It's pretty much guaranteed, but they always tell us it's not guaranteed.
So where does that get used?
That, well, we've used it for the signs on the office. Right now, we've used it to make up for some of the printing we've had. Some of the items, the outreach items that we have. There's a kind of a narrow description of what we can use it for, and that's set by the Iowa Department of Veteran Affairs.
I'll move to receive this.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? It passes 4-0. Moving on to item 3, assistance, which is on page 6. Any questions on it? This is what, the funeral assistance and everything?
Funeral and rental, groceries, we've got medical assistance, transportation assistance.
So the rental assistance is at $2,890 for 6 months, and we're budgeting $15,100.
And part of that is because they had the, kind of the stop on evictions. And we've had people calling us just in the last month or two. Otherwise, we didn't have anybody doing anything.
All right, I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Young. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to G, juvenile detention. 1 is the juvenile detention facility, pages 2 through 5.
Ryan Weber, Juvenile Detention. Just to start off, we'll address the loss of revenue past year and the loss of projected revenue. The fear of COVID has kind of hit us harder than most people. Most of our revenue comes as a state reimbursement. We get anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 reimbursement every year from the state. That comes from a fund that is funded by traffic tickets, car registrations, anything to deal with that. So if you think your registration goes towards building roads, it doesn't. But that was basically cut in half, so every detention center got half of what they got before. So detention centers, like Polk County, who got $4 or $5 million, ended up with a little less than $1 million. So every detention center went through the same thing. When they were throwing money around all these other places, they didn't find any way to fix us and reimburse us that money, so we just kind of had to deal with it. Also, our out-of-state kids that we housed for money, they didn't want to send them out of state anymore. They wanted to keep them on the tribes. They wanted to not move them as much as possible. When they were in a place, they wouldn't move them out of fear of COVID. So basically, we were just left with it is what it is on our revenue. We didn't have any more expenses for COVID. My nursing bill didn't go up, my supply bill didn't go up, so it wasn't, hit that way. But reimbursement-wise, it definitely was a huge hit. I got the projections for that fund and how they allegedly lost money for it. It's starting to go back up. It's nowhere near it was. My assumption is you still need to register your car, and so I don't know how that happens. And Iowa didn't close the bars, so it wasn't like, but you basically have to take their word for it as far as what kind of money's in there. Any questions on that? I sent Dennis the actual figures on how much money was not put in the account, if you want to see that at some point.
So do you have less inmates on a daily basis then without?
No.
Okay. Where's the increase from then?
Iowa passed a law, you can't house anybody under 18 in an adult prison anymore. So we've got every kid charged with murder. We're all housing them now. And that means all these other counties that have county jails but don't have county detention centers, they can't put those kids in their county jails anymore.
So are we getting a revenue from them?
Yeah, so we got kids from Monona County adult holds, and so we're getting that, but it's not a huge chunk yet because it's still a transition to not be putting them, there, and people are figuring out funding sources so they can send their kids off now, because it only costs them $30-40 to house them in a jail, and it costs $150 to house them with me, so I can see that picking up a lot.
Is it a different class of guest as far as more violent then?
Yeah, it's rough because we have the same guidelines. We have to treat them as a 12-year-old, same rules as you would a 12-year-old sex offender as a 17-year-old murderer, So it's been tough because they occupy the same space, we got the same resources. We're not allowed to put them in their room for any reason, disciplinary-wise. So it's difficult. There's a lot more assaults on staff,
And who made that decision? A judge?
Supreme Court of Iowa. one of those well-intentioned decisions that has massive repercussions down the line.
Sure.
Because, you know, I have a convicted murderer, but he can't go to prison till he's, 18 years old, so he stays with me till then. So the day before he turns 18, I'm not allowed to put him in his room for 10 minutes for discipline, but the very next day, he can go to prison and spend 23 and a half hours, just because of a day of a birthday. So it's difficult, and every detention center in Iowa is going through the same problem.
Well, it just seems ridiculous that you couldn't put somebody in their room for 10 minutes when they're that kind of behavioral individual.
No, they come do a DRI, Disability Rights of Iowa, just did an investigation, interviewed all of our kids, and they take the kid's word for it, whether they're misunderstood or not. Yeah. So the next thing you know, you're in the Des Moines Register for.
We have cameras all throughout, kind of recording everything. So.
Yeah.
Can you take any extra precautions?
I mean, we do what we can. We try to have more staff, but you're not allowed to. You basically have to let them tear the place apart before you can put a hand on them and restrain them.
How are people's stress levels? I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah, we're not even allowed to cuff them to take them to court anymore. Presumption of innocence.
So
Yeah. You have to have a court order to transport them, and
You can't cuff them.
Move the receipt.
I need one adjustment.
Okay.
Mercy One, we've had a great relationship with for years. We've had a contract with them since, I think, 2003 for $36 an hour for nursing services. They have a new director person there, and they want to raise that to, I think it's 54. I just need $1,000 more in my health service assistance fund. I think it's well overdue, and I don't see it as a huge issue. Joshua just went over the contract, so I should have it ready to be approved in a couple weeks.
So we'll move to receive with an increase of 1,000 then? Is that your amended motion, Justin? All right. So I'll second that. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to 2, Juvenile Detention Federal Food Program on page 6.
This is, I think, the second year for this area. We were able to, we had some issues with the previous person in years back. We weren't getting any reimbursement for federal food program, which we totally qualified for. So I put Jill Gilmore, my assistant, does an amazing job. So we're getting about a third to a quarter of all the money back we spend on lunch and breakfast as a reimbursement. So it's a good chunk, $20,000 that we didn't get before. So we just have to separate it because the money they give us has to specifically be used for food purchase. Can't be in a general basic fund. So we just had to create its own.
How much did you say you get back?
We figured we were getting like a meal 6 something. We're getting 2 something back. So.
Total?
Yeah.
I mean, total for the year, how much do you think you're gonna get back?
Oh, I put that in there.
You had 13,000, but that's less than, say, 20% or whatever your percent was. Would that be increased at all?
Well, 13,000 of what did I put for amount?
Expenditure was 83.9, you put in 13.
That's before we just went through after you called me and figured out the exact amount, so.
Okay. Well, that's
whatever. It'd be 20% is what we ended up figuring out. I figured that without having.
20% of 83,000, or say 16,000?
Yeah.
Well, we're on pace to do 20 this year, maybe?
So it's still around that number then, isn't it? Yeah. Don't question my math.
So we put 13, and you say we could bump it up to 16?
The revenue, yeah. Which takes care of his 1,000 plus 2,000 extra. Is that okay?
Yeah, we just qualified for a better program than we were in last year too, so it's a few more pennies than before, so.
So we're going to move it with a reduction of, increase of revenue of 3,000, so a reduction of 3,000 total.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move that.
We're getting about 2,200 a month, so it'd be in the $20,000 range, so.
Do I get a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Was all your furniture like welded to the floor or bolted down? So
Yeah, I've been nickel and diming our repairs for years for you guys, and we're kind of at that position where, we're gonna need a lot of repairs or look at something new, but, for the most part, we used to call it, a kindergarten environment, because that's what it is, but we've got, these kids aren't any different than their 18, 19-year-old counterpart, so it can be difficult at times, but that's why you pay me the big bucks, I guess.
yeah. Well, thank you. Item H, Community Economic Development.
This is funded out of rural basic, but we use economic development or we use lost funds to pay his expenses.
David Gleiser, Director of Community Economic Development. For the fiscal year 23 proposed operational budget, I pretty much held the line. I moved some funds around on various line items based on utilization and what we believe we will spend the rest of the fiscal year. The biggest issue I have with this budget, or one of the things that I would bring to the board's attention, is that last year I recommended we sell one of our department vehicles. We did that, and we have 2 parking spots in the Willigus building, in the Willigus garage, and we had the 1 spot behind the sheriff's department. We sold the vehicle that occupied the spot behind the sheriff's department. And to be honest with you, I think the sheriff should probably occupy that space. It seems most logical that they occupy that space. I've talked to the sheriff briefly about it, and he'd be willing to, try to help me find some other place to put it or help me get one of those city parking passes or something like that. But for myself, I park in the Willigus building, or in the Willigus garage. Dan and Don park in the ramp across the street, or the garage across the street. And I'd offer, or I guess I'd ask the board if it would help the budget scenario overall, if we would sell our last department vehicle. Because then I don't have to worry about finding a place to park it. But, the reason why I asked for the vehicle in the very beginning was because when I first got hired, I was doing a lot of driving out into the county, a lot of driving to Des Moines, a lot of driving around to meet stakeholders and so forth. And I was leasing a vehicle that year, and my mileage was just killing my mileage. But I'm in a different position now in terms of my personal vehicle, and I'd be willing to use my personal vehicle if I had to go out into the county to perform a work function. Something that our zoning coordinator is amenable to as well. And then it would alleviate the $650 expenditure or the issue of trying to find a parking spot. I don't know if there are other departments in the county that need a vehicle, but it's a good vehicle. It's got low miles, and I just throw that out there for discussion.
Is that the Ferrari or the Lamborghini?
It's the Hummer.
Actually, if it was a truck, that would be probably worth as much right now, so.
It's a Ram 1500 4-door with the crew cab, but with the smaller doors, so smaller rear doors.
That's actually what it is, it's a truck? Yeah, it's worth a small fortune, that's like, yeah.
Didn't you also have some damage on the vehicle at the beginning, or?
So in the beginning, yes, my personal vehicle had a rock chip come up and hit my windshield.
Rocks are still gonna jump up at you.
Yeah, I don't know. Larry Clausen denied that claim. I don't know if maybe this is a different board.
Heck, you can almost buy a new windshield cheaper than you can get a rock chip fixed.
But, I mean, it's, we still utilize the vehicle, you know, we still use it, so, but the parking location for this vehicle is an issue, and I just need some help with. I've talked to the auditor, and we've looked at the parking plan, and it still shows us occupying that space, but again, I think the sheriff should have that space. If we can find another place to park that truck, that'd be great.
So that would be like a $7,800 reduction, is what you're thinking, about $650 a month, or?
$650 a year.
Oh, a year, oh, okay, well then, I don't know that we'll make any change on it, but I think we can explore, you know, where we could either use this vehicle
Or even if we park it up by, like, building services parks.
use the chamber lot.
Wherever you tell me, I'll park it.
Just teasing.
But no, outside of that, our budget is, you know, fairly small. It's just really operational expenses. And last year, we removed $650 from the parking line item. And it ends in July or August, and I don't have that budgeted for next year, so.
Publications went up a little bit.
Everything kind of went up a little bit, and this is, I guess a good segue is that we've also analyzed our building permit, our fee schedules, our department fee schedules. And so I've got a presentation for the supervisors to review and consider amending those fees.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to emergency management. You said Rebecca was on the phone.
Yep. Good evening. This is Becca Socknut with Emergency Management. So as far as my budget, we had our budget hearing with the Emergency Management Commission. Unfortunately, we had published for $165,529 from the county. However, the commission did decide against taking on the county's hazmat fees. So that was actually lowered to $144,529. So that's about an increase of $8,100 from the current year. Majority of those are just our normal expenses, are increasing some maintenance contracts. It was determined that we should probably get a booth at the fair this year. We haven't done that because there's been another fair that we've always participated in as a district, as well as we were able to hire a part-time position. So we've offset a lot of the increases by utilizing reserves, and our reserves have continuously increased over the last several years, partly because of the federal declarations we've had that have come out of one fiscal year's budget. However, the reimbursement comes typically the year after, it seems.
Okay.
Originally, I think we moved 25,000 over from emergency services over to EMA. So instead of EMA doing it now, I moved the budget back to EMS. It doesn't affect tax assessing either way because they're both paid out general sub. Now, there is a bill introduced in the Senate, I believe, I read it today, that right now the EMA Board, Emergency Management Commission, sets the budget. They certify over to the county what they need. The board really has no choice. The new bill, if they pass it, the board can send it over. The commission sent it over to the board can reject it or accept it. That's a change. Now you're pretty much mandated to accept it. Future may change if the bill passes. So it's a 20, I had 25,000 reduction down to 140, from 165, 601 minus 25,000, and add 25 onto the emergency services.
And that is incorrect because the hazmat fees were only 20,000, just shy of 21,000. So I had proposed in my budget only the 21,000 because the 25 was 41 something higher than what it needed to be.
Okay, it's 21,000 what?
I had it in my budget as 21,000. So
Okay, that's fine, so it doesn't affect tax asking either way. I just want to correct the EMS by 21,000, lower 4,000, 21,000. And that's no
yeah, and that
problem.
should stay the same for the next several years, I believe through 2027. Don't hold me to that because it was an increase due to the 2020 census and the hazmat contract.
So what are we doing here?
So actually, it's going to reduce by that difference between 21 and 25, take 4,000 off emergency service patrol. Let's save us 4,000 bucks.
So we're taking 4,000 off of here.
No, the EMA is all right, except you're taking off 21,000 off the 165,601. So you're down to what she said, I believe 144,601. And then I'll adjust the EMS budget from 25 to 21, which saves us 4,000.
So I'll move those changes as long as Michelle's got them.
We'll get to her.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Wright. Any further discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Moving on to District Health, the most patient man in the room.
Good afternoon. Kevin Green, Director at Sloan District Health Department. Included within this is, just like the Board of Health, they've gone through a separate review process at the December meeting. This is what the budget they actually approved. I know with what Dennis provided you, I think he and I had a discussion had later. When you look at the 21 to 22, it appears as if it's a 33% increase. I do want to remind the board that last year in your acceptance and recommendation at the end is that the actual tax asking was $2,789,294, and then you reduced utilization of the health fund of $570,218. So that's why it looks like it is a 33%, when in all reality from last year to this year it's about a 5.9% increase. That increase is due to the fact that also, so the board understands, this incorporates, as you lay on your personnel and benefits, when you do that later, this includes those increases for Siouxland District Health Department. It's a 3.5% cost of living is what we've calculated into this. Some of the other things we have, just as an example, is we do have a lot of non-English speaking clients that we're seeing. In ending June 30th, 2019, we spent about $6,300. Last year in June of 2020, we actually spent $33,442, and this year we're at $621. That fiscal year ending, we were at $27,146, and we probably are averaging about $2,000 to $2,500 per month just on language line services. So those are some of the increases that we've incurred. So along with that, like everyone else, the energy costs, that includes total operation of the building within this budget. So within grants, we also then do space cost allocations out. So they are helping with the rent and offsetting those. So it's not like we're supporting those programs.
Do we know that all the patients coming in come from our county?
Yes, there are. I would say for the core services that we have, I mean, as far as with the COVID-19 vaccine, that has been, we have not been able to restrict as far as the delivery of that. The majority of those we do look at serving from Woodbury County. Every county around us has their own immunization program, their own WIC program, those types of things. So the majority of them, I can't say 100% they all would, but the majority of them are Woodbury County residents. We can't serve South Dakota or Nebraska with the WIC and those services.
But on the
language line, yes. Those would be pretty much, those should be all Woodbury County residents.
Okay. Go ahead there, Jeremy.
Thank you. Kevin, do you attribute the majority of the increase in foot traffic with language services due to COVID-19?
Some of it is last year that ended on June 20th. We know that we saw a great influx in there as far as for the COVID-19. I think in the last year, it's probably a mixture both for regular services. We kind of looked at that, probably about 40% might be for COVID and the other 60% would be for regular services. But we are continually seeing an increase. You know, we have the refugee resettlement. We don't have Tigrinya interpreters. We continue to serve all of those individuals.
Okay. Just for the awareness of the board, as I mentioned earlier, Matthew and I have been talking about some various use of ARPA funds. This may be one of them that we could look at potentially. So just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things in talking even with employers is that there's any way we can expand upon basically non-English speaking support services within the community for businesses. I think that's a need. Some of our, you know, our larger employees can go ahead and afford to bring in an interpreter, but I think some of our mid to smaller ones, they are out of the game at being able to be employers of those individuals because they don't know how to bridge that language barrier. So there would be some discussions that could be held related to utilization of that too.
Thank you.
Okay, what I do, you know, talking about cash reserves, we allow them a 25%, or we propose a 25% reserve, which is more than any of our other funds. But with 25% reserve, their auditor's cash balance audited was $1,825,000. I take as 4 funds that we actually fund, not the grant funds, just the funds we fund. Comes to $3,763,000 for the new year. 25% is $940,000. So what I'd like to propose is, instead of using the difference of $884,000 all in 1 year, spread this over 2 years, 23, 24, and then 25, hopefully getting federal prisoners, which will reduce the tax rate hopefully dramatically, which frees up money to cover what we're decreasing here. Instead of taking the whole $884,000 and give them down to 25%, take $400,000 this year, and then next year there'll be another $400,000 for 24. Then the increase will have to be covered through taxation because we're down to 25%. So pull out the reserves again for the next 2 years.
Right, but I think also we need to take that 1.8 that it was audited on June 30th of 2021, 570,000 of that is committed towards, out of that cash reserve, towards this fiscal year. So just, I mean,
right.
I don't disagree with the direction Dennis is heading, but 1 year at a time, let's see.
Yeah,
instead of a 2-year commitment.
Do it each year, but do this year for now, and then next year we'll see where they're at with these reductions. So you can reduce the allocation by 400,000.
But
May I ask a question?
You can't change the line items. You can reduce an allocation if you want to have them to cut expenses, but the expenses the same, just reduce the allocation by 400,000, using 400,000 of their reserves on hand.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you. So that would actually bring us above the 25%, is that correct? Because we're not taking the full 800,000. I just wonder if the board's wise or going to 25%, because then we will still do a reconciliation at the end of the next year. I understand that we're looking to spread this out over 2 years, but it seems like we're keeping an inordinate amount of reserve there then, if I'm not mistaken.
But the thing, Kevin here has mentioned that 570,000 of that reserve will be gone because we used that during this fiscal year.
well, then that's not the correct number to go off of. That it would be the 1.8 minus that.
Right, that's probably.
Would be the actual retained reserves.
It's uncommitted reserves.
Uncommitted reserves. So roughly what is that number then? Minus the,
570 off 502. About 325,000 approximately, after you take the 570 off, we could use.
wait, okay, let's back up.
Okay.
So you said audited reserves is 1.8
Yep.
something minus the 513,
So you're down to 1.3.
okay?
He needs
And they need,
940,000 to continue at 25% reserves.
right,
So 460,000, then they're down to 25%. That count the reserves we're using this year and the reserves we're using for this current year and the reserve next year, 460,000. Then we're down to even. 460. Then there's nothing to reduce it unless reserves go up for some motion or action.
I thought you said 400 a second ago.
Well, we got to count for, I didn't count for the 570,000. So what Matthew said is right, take $1.8 million off 500,000, approximately $1.3 million. You can use 400 and really 360,000. Then we're down to 25% counting the use of the reserves this year and next year. And in 24, we'll have to figure out what we're going to do.
Last year, how much over reserves, how much over the 25% did we leave? Was it a large?
Wasn't very large, so we took 570.
Right, but he was still left with over 25%.
Yes. I don't know the exact number, I'd have to go back and check it out.
Yeah, I agree with Supervisor Taylor as far as why wait, why hold an extra reserve for another year if you know you're going to use it. This is something the board refills if needed. I don't see any issue with keeping a little bit above because we always like to do that, and it's the reality of where we're at. But I think overall, it just shows the fact that the department is adequately funded and has been and is able to do what it needs to do. And we certainly allowed them to use extra reserves over the last year.
Well,
so
great leadership too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
360, get them down to approximately 25%. Then we'll worry about next year for 24 next year.
So we'll look at 360 reduction today.
In their allocation, yes.
Okay, so I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Hunt. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports on committee meetings. Start with the meeting I attended there for our conference board, and we did not have a quorum, but neither did the city or the school district, so no meetings. I will be there on the 2nd. Can I get the first? Rocky said he could not be.
Two.
Full time, sorry. So it's Matthew or Jeremy, I gotta get one of you.
I will be.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other committee meetings?
I had one, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Conservation Board meeting, we talked about the hiring that they successfully completed of a natural resource assistant, and then looked at the Browns Lake area in concession, and the bids came in within 0.5% of the estimation, and so that was good. We're discussing sending letters to those residents where their access will be impeded, but that should be a very good project. And we also honored Sue Bowden for her time as a long-term Conservation Board member, and discussed that fees were just north of $350,000 during 2021, which is a bounce back from 2020. And then have about a 5-page long-term plan that we're going to work through eventually, but we won't do for some time.
What was that? What was that, fees, you said? What did you say was an increase in 2021?
The annual fees that they're getting from the park user fees, which is good news revenue, just north of $350,000. The year before in 2020, it was just under $300,000.
Just for Browns Lake or all the parks?
All parks.
I also had a workforce development board meeting that was kind of unique. As a lot of you know, we've restructured that board. We had 3 regions merge. A lot of this was at the direction of the state that tried to force us to merge with certain counties. Those forced mergers were rejected. mergers we've done. We've gotten our local board put together. We, basically there's a CEO board and a local board. The CEO board is made up of supervisors. The local board is people that are nominated by the CEOs. David Weiser used to be one, Dan Moore used to be one, but when we merged with the 18 counties, we lost a lot of our local representatives on that, but there's still like 3 from within this area. Anyway, in moving forward with the state plans, we had to put forward a action plan and a few other things that the state requested. What's interesting though is the state rejected the plans for 69 of the 99 counties in Iowa, which was 4 of the, I think, 7 regions. And they only gave tentative approval to 2 of the regions and only approved 1. I don't know what the point of it is. The rejection for our region was based on not having a disability plan, which is not required under the law. So we're submitting our plan again, and I think if it is rejected again, we might look to ask attorney's office or county attorneys to file suit with the state to go forward. So that's my fun one. Any other committee meetings? Citizen concern round 2. Jonathan, anything? Good. All right. Board concerns. I'll say during the meeting, I got a call and text from Hallberg auctioneer and land broker. Recently purchased a building in Correctionville for auctions. They would like to contact us as well. And I guess, anybody else have any concerns?
Just to give you an idea what's on next week, we got the comm center allocation, StarCom allocation, youth guidance services, medical examiner, 23 CIP program, which is, we'll just give you a list, but that changes almost monthly, and then the wage plan employees.
Did you have the numbers or running total on tax asking?
Yes, I do have that in your packet there, and I'll update it for this, what we did today, so you'll have it in your packet when it goes out.
What was that?
American.
Huh?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Any further questions or discussion? Yes?
What time are we starting next week?
Next week,
4 o'clock,
4
or
o'clock.
you could probably even go 4:30. I don't think any of these are long discussions, some of you guys.
So that's the first, right?
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah, I think we're good, because we have conference board at 6 p.m. tonight, but I don't think we have anything following that one. Do we have somebody else going to the conference board with me? All right.
I will.
All right. Sounds fun.
So it's 4:30 then?
It just said 4. 4.
It's up to you gentlemen, when you want to come, 4 or 4:30.
Let's go with 4. Because there could be more discussion than I expect. I know we had discussion about meeting with Mid-American. I know Mid-American reached out. Did anybody have any questions on, Mid-American in general? I know that was something that was brought up to meet with them, and then we didn't have any meetings when they reached out, so. Just a question for the board. All right. Seeing nothing, I'll just say we're adjourned.